The oath before the salt. The first time I held an axe meant for war, it felt too light. That is the mistake men make when they imagine killing. They imagine weight. They imagine the swing and the sound of bone. They imagine the moment. They do not imagine the days before it, when your hands are so clean you can still pretend you're a farmer. Just a man on a coast where the wind never stops speaking. My name is Einar Hrafnsson, son of a man who could row for hours without changing his face. People in our fjord said my father had a heart made of tarred rope. I believed them until the year the barley failed twice, and he started counting mouths like they were numbers carved into wood. It began like so many things in the north. Quietly, with hunger. Hunger made men watch the sea, the way a dog watches a butcher's door. Hunger made old grudges feel like they belonged to someone else. Hunger made strangers' wealth feel like an insult. And then a man came from the west with a rumor that sounded like a lie told by the ocean itself. There is an island, he said, standing in our longhouse near the fire, where men keep gold in open boxes. They don't hide it. They don't bury it. They don't defend it. Someone laughed. Someone always laughs first, because it feels safer than hope. My father did not laugh. He asked, why? The traveler spat into the ash. Because they think their God will protect them. Their God is nailed to wood. A murmur moved through the longhouse. Not anger, not yet. Curiosity, that more dangerous spark. The traveler continued. They wear no mail. They carry no spear. They ring bells when they see ships. Bells. I remember the sound the word made in my head. Bells. Soft. Useless. Like crying. Our Jarl Haldor sat in the high seat with his eyes half-lidded as if bored. But I watched his fingers. They tapped the armrest once. Twice. He was counting. How many men? He asked. Not many, the traveler said. And the island is close to shore, a place called Lindisfarne. The name meant nothing to us then. It sounded like a fish. Haldor looked across the hall at the rowers' men with shoulders carved by oars. He looked at the younger ones' boys who wanted scars the way girls want jewelry. He looked at me last, and I hated that my stomach tightened like it was already tied to something. Spring tides, Haldor said. We go when the sea is kind. My father's jaw clenched. He did not say yes out loud. He didn't need to. In the north, you don't sign your name to a decision. You simply show up when the ship is launched. That night, while the others drank to courage, I stood outside in the dark and listened to the surf. It sounded like a crowd whispering. The sea always knows what you are about to do. When I went back inside, my mother had already heard. She did not cry. She just pressed her thumb into my palm and left a small smear of soot there like a mark. For luck, she said, though her voice did not believe it. My father put a hand on my shoulder. Heavy now. Listen, he said. The first rule of a raid is this. You do not chase what runs. I nodded. He said. The second rule. You do not hesitate at the door. I nodded again, though my mouth was dry. Then he leaned in and said the third rule, so softly that I almost didn't hear it. Don't let the screaming make you drunk. I remember that more clearly than anything else from that winter. The ship that carried our hunger. Our longship was named Sea Raven, not because we loved ravens, but because ravens show up where something is about to die. 26 of us in the main crew, and a few more to stand guard and steer. We loaded barley, dried fish, water skins, spare oars, rope, axes, spears, shields, and the one thing no one admitted was the heaviest: expectations. Some men traveled for glory, some for silver, some to buy land or repay debt. My father traveled because the fjord had started to feel like a grave that hadn't been filled yet. I traveled because I couldn't bear being left behind. The voyage west was not dramatic the way stories make it. There were no heroic speeches while the waves rose like mountains. Most days were gray and cold and ordinary. You row, you bail, you piss over the side. You chew dried fish until your jaw hurts. You sleep when you can. You wake when you're told. But fear grows in ordinary places. It grows in the gaps between jokes. At night, the men spoke more quietly. Some told stories of strange shores. Some spoke of the English these monks as if they were a different species. "They don't fight," said a man named Bercy, a broad-shouldered killer with a laugh that had no warmth. "They pray." Someone asked, "Pray with what?" Bercy grinned, with their mouths open. We laughed. Not because it was funny, because it made the unknown smaller. The sea did not care. On the 5th day, we saw land low and green. The coast of Northumbria. It looked peaceful. That made it worse. A peaceful coast means someone hasn't been tested. Haldor stood near the prow and pointed. "There," he said. "The island, Lindisfarne." It sat off the shore like something the sea had forgotten to swallow. A thin strip of sand connected it to the mainland at low tide, a causeway, and on the island itself, stone buildings, a monastery, a place of prayer and treasure, so the traveler had said. As we drew closer, I saw something bright catch the sun near a doorway. Gold, not hidden. My stomach turned over, and for a moment I hated the monks for making it so easy. I hated them for existing like this while my mother rationed flour. The men lowered their voices. The air changed. Even Bercy's grin faded. Haldor raised his hand, and the oars slowed. The ship glided. We were wolves, nearing a pen. My father leaned toward me. "Shield high," he said. "If they throw stones, you keep your face." "If they don't fight?" I asked. He looked at me for a long moment, then said, "Then you will see what kind of man you are." That is not a question you want asked right before you step onto foreign sand. The first bell. We landed at low tide. The sand was firm enough for boots, and the causeway lay exposed like a vein. No alarm yet. That bothered Haldor. He wanted chaos. Chaos is cover. Then, from somewhere near the monastery, a bell began to ring. Not a war horn, a bell. It was thin, bright, frantic like panic forced into metal. Men appeared, monks in simple robes, running toward the main hall. Some looked back and saw us, their faces drained. One fell to his knees. They didn't form a line. They didn't raise spears. They scattered like birds. Haldor's voice cut through us. "No chasing. Straight to the hall. Straight to the treasure." We moved fast, sand giving way beneath our boots, shields thumping against arms. I kept my eyes forward, but I saw glimpses. Stone walls, carved crosses, small gardens, a well. This place smelled of salt and herbs and something clean I couldn't name. A monk stepped into our path holding a wooden cross with both hands like it was a shield. He was old. His beard was white. His eyes were wide. He said something in their tongue. I didn't understand, but I understood the tone. Begging. My axe was in my hand. My shield was up. I felt the moment stretch like rope. I hesitated. Behind me, Bercy did not. He shoved past my shoulder and slammed his shield into the old man's chest. The monk fell backward, coughing, the cross clattering on stone. "Move," Bercy snarled, "or go home and milk goats." My face burned. Not from insult, from relief. From the fact that someone else had made the first violent act, as if that removed my responsibility. We surged onward. That is how men become monsters. One step at a time, following the man in front of them. The Hall of Quiet Riches. The main hall doors were thick wood reinforced with iron. Monks clung to the inside, trying to hold it shut. I heard their breathing through the cracks. Small sounds, human. Haldor nodded to two men. They lifted a log like a ram and slammed it into the doors. Once, twice. On the third hit, the doors burst inward. The monk stumbled, arms flailing, eyes huge. Inside, warmth from candles. The smell of incense. Tables with books and cups and gilded objects that seemed too delicate to exist. Gold gleamed everywhere. Not piles, but details, edges, crosses, chalices, little plates of shining metal. My mouth went dry. This was not like taking from a rival farm. This was like stepping into a dream where everything is worth money. Then I saw the books. Large, carefully made, lettered by hand. Men rushed toward the gold. One grabbed a chalice. Another tore a cloth off a table and stuffed it into his tunic. A third began prying metal off a shrine. A monk screamed as someone punched him. Haldor shouted, "Keep them down! Tie them!" Ropes came out, knives flashed, hands grabbed robes and hair. I found myself standing near a wall with a monk pressed against it, trembling. He was young, maybe my age. His eyes met mine. He spoke quickly, desperately. He pointed at the floor, then at the door, like he was offering something, trying to bargain. I didn't understand a word, but I understood the truth behind it. "Please don't." My father's voice came back in my head. "Don't let the screaming make you drunk." The monk's hands were raised. His fingers shook. I could have bound him. I could have shoved him aside. I could have done nothing. Instead, I raised my shield and pressed it gently into his chest, not striking, just pinning. "Stay," I said in my tongue, useless. He cried anyway, and then the screaming got louder. Because outside, someone finally fought back. Battle begins. The shoreline counterattack. A shout rose from the courtyard, sharp and harsh. A different sound than Monk's panic. Steel. Men, not many, but enough. Northumbrian guards, perhaps local warriors, or men from a nearby settlement had arrived in a hurry. Spears and short swords in hand. They formed a ragged line near the causeway, trying to cut off our retreat to the ship. That's when a raid becomes a battle. Haldor moved like a man who'd been waiting for this. He barked commands, and our men flowed out of the hall, treasure half stuffed into belts, shields raised. "Shield wall," Haldor roared. We formed round shields overlapping, a line of wood and iron. Spears angled out like teeth. I took a position beside my father. His shield pressed against mine. He didn't look at me. He didn't need to. Across from us, the Northumbrians advanced with caution. They were fewer than us, maybe 15 or 20. But they had something we didn't expect. Rage, not panicked rage. The kind that comes from seeing your home violated. Their Leadera broad man with a shaved jaw and a thick mustache shouted in their tongue and pointed his spear at us like he was cursing. Then they came. Spears jabbed into our shield wall with brutal force, rattling my arm. One point slid between shields, scraping along the wood with a sound like a knife across a bowl. "Hold," my father grunted. I held. The pressure was enormous. Wood creaked. Men shoved. Feet dug into sand. Then Haldor shouted, "Push!" We surged forward as one organism, shields driving into their line. I felt impact. My shield slammed into a man's face, his nose crunching. His breath exploded against the wood. He stumbled back, screaming. A spear thrust came toward my throat. Instinct took over. I angled my shield and the spear glanced off, skidding along the rim. My axe hand moved. I swung at the shaft, chopping it. The wood split. The spear point fell into the sand. The Northumbrian's eyes widened. He reached for a knife. My father stepped in and buried his axe into the man's shoulder with a wet, final sound. The man collapsed. My stomach lurched, not because of blood I'd seen animals butchered, but because a man had been alive and then wasn't. And it happened so fast that my mind could not put a prayer or a story around it. This is what war is. A place where time stops being sacred. To our left, Bercy laughed as he drove forward, smashing shields, roaring. To our right, a Viking took a spear in the thigh and went down, screaming. Another grabbed him by the tunic and dragged him back. The shoreline was chaos. Now sand churned, men slipping, screaming, stabbing. The bell still rang somewhere behind us, but it sounded far away, like it belonged to another life. A Northumbrian with a short sword slipped past the edge of our wall and came at me sideways. His eyes were wild. He slashed at my ribs. I caught the blade on my shield rim, sparks jumping. My arm jolted numb. He raised the sword again. I stepped forward, closing distance. My father's first lesson. Don't fight at the end of their reach. My shield hit his chest, hard. He stumbled back. My axe came up awkward, panicked, and I brought it down toward his forearm. The blade bit, not deep, but enough. He screamed and dropped the sword. He looked at me like I was something unnatural. Then he ran, and I remembered my father's first rule. You do not chase what runs. I didn't chase, but something in me wanted to. Something hot. I hated that, because it meant the screaming was starting to make me drunk. The moment the sea chose, the Northumbrian leader realized he was losing. Our numbers were too much, our line too disciplined. Their ragged formation broke as men tried to retreat toward the causeway. Haldor shouted, "Drive them off!" Then back to the ship, fast. We pressed. Spears jabbed, shields slammed. The Northumbrians retreated, stepping backward into wet sand near the causeway. And then the sea did something cruel. The tide turned, not dramatically, not in a storybook surge. Just enough water creeping over the sand to cut the causeway sooner than expected. The Northumbrians looked back and saw the water rising around their feet. Their retreat route narrowed. Their panic spiked. They turned to run, but the sand became mud, sucking at their boots. This wasn't our cleverness. It was the sea making its own decision. We advanced. A man slipped and fell. 2 Vikings were on him instantly. The Northumbrian leader shouted again, trying to rally, but his voice broke under the noise. Then a rock hit my shield, hard thrown by someone behind the line. Maybe a monk, maybe a villager. It made my arm ring. Another rock hit a Viking's head and opened it like a sack. He fell without a sound. For a heartbeat, I saw my mother's face. Then the fight swallowed the thought. My father grabbed my shoulder. "Back," he barked. "Enough! Enough!" I shouted, confused, breathless. He pointed toward the ship. We had what we came for: gold, silver, objects, hostages. And now, the tide was turning in a way that could trap us on the island if we stayed. Haldor was already pulling men back, shouting like a commander, not a raider. He knew the sea better than any god. We retreated in rough order, shields up, dragging wounded men. The Northumbrians did not pursue. They were too broken, too busy pulling their own out of the mud. But as we pulled away, I saw something I hadn't expected. A monk young, standing near the hall doorway, holding one of the big books against his chest as if shielding it from us. His eyes were filled with hatred, pure and simple. Not fear, hatred. For a moment, the battle noise faded, and it was just his stare and my breathing. Then Bearsy ran past me, snatched the book, and threw it into the mud like it was garbage. The monk screamed and dove after it, weeping, and my stomach twisted in a new way, because I understood then we hadn't only taken gold, we had taken something they loved. And love makes enemies more dangerous than soldiers. The retreat that doesn't feel like victory. We reached the ship as water lapped higher along the sand. Men shoved treasure under benches, tied bundles down, hauled the wounded aboard. The sea raven floated free. Oars dipped. We pulled away from the island while Lindisfarne shrank behind us. A quiet place, suddenly scarred. The bell had stopped. Smoke rose from somewhere thin, uncertain. My hands were shaking. Not from exhaustion, from delayed fear. Bearsy grinned, gold in his teeth like sunlight. "Easy," he said. "Their god didn't even show up." No one laughed this time. My father sat on the bench across from me, wiping his axe clean with a cloth, as if it were just a tool, not a doorway into death. I looked at him. Was that victory? He didn't look up. "We left," he said. "That's victory." I stared at the shoreline receding, at figures gathering there, small and powerless, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. Because part of Mean Ugly Part wanted to go back, wanted to finish it, wanted to see what it felt like to take without hurry. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. My father finally looked up and met my eyes like he could see the thought. "Don't," he said, just that, one word. Then he added quieter, "The sea took you there. Don't let it take you farther." The hook for the next battle. Night fell. Wind pushed us east. Men slept around the treasure like dogs around meat. I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing the Northumbrian's face when he ran from me the moment he decided I was not human to him anymore. That moment is a curse. It follows you. In the darkness, Haldor came to where my father sat near the stern. I wasn't meant to hear, but the sea carries voices. "We can do this again," Haldor said. My father's voice was low. "They will be ready." Haldor laughed softly. "Then we take a bigger prize." "What prize?" Haldor paused, then said a word I'd never heard before. "Paris." My father said nothing for a long time. Then he asked the question that mattered. How far can a man row before he becomes something else? Haldor answered, "Farther than he thinks." I stared into the black water and felt the story stretching ahead. River raids, burning towns, shield walls on foreign ground, each battle teaching me the same lesson, until I either learned it or broke. The sea whispered, the oars creaked, and somewhere behind us, on an island of stone, a bell lay silent, waiting for the next ship.